Thank you so much for joining today's Resideo webinar session on humidification. My name is Jamie Quanrud, and I'm part of the Resideo sales training team. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome you to our training session today. Before we get started with our technical presentation on humidification, I'm going to cover just a few administrative items for you. Every week we give you 2 opportunities to join us and learn about our products. So please join us every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time and every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. On the next slide, you'll see a listing of our future webinars on a variety of topics. So please visit resideo.com/webinars for more information. We also have launched a resource page on the resideo.com website where we are posting the recordings of our previous webinars for your reference as well. And then for those contractors who are joining us for today's live session, and you are interested in earning 1 NATE continuing education credit, there are just a few things to note. On your registration form, if you provided us with your NATE ID, we are going to submit that information to NATE for crediting for attending today's live session 1 week from today. So we don't need any additional information from you at this time if you provided your NATE ID on your registration form. However, if you did not provide us with your NATE ID on that registration form for this webinar, and you would like to receive credit for attending our live session, we then ask you to email your first name, your last name, your NATE ID, and the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com by Wednesday of next week. We submit this information to NATE 1 week following the close of today's session. Any requests sent outside of 1 week from today's live training cannot be processed. And as a reminder, we can only process requests for NATE credits when you attend the live webinar sessions, and we are unable to process requests for watching a recorded version of this session at this time. For more information about the NATE program, please visit their website at www.natex.org. And then one quick note before we begin our technical presentation today, all of our attendees are muted. However, if at any point during the technical presentation you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature that is found in your Zoom webinar controls. And we are reserving the last 15 minutes of our time today to answer your questions. So as we make our way through the technical training today, please be sure to ask any questions you do have in that Q&A feature so that we can address it at the end of today's session. Now we're going to turn things over to Jeff Holben, who is one of our Resideo contractor development specialists in our Ohio market. Jeff is an expert in humidification, and he's going to walk us through our technical training this morning. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Jeff.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody this morning. So we're going to discuss sizing of humidification, variables that we need to take into account, our portfolio as a whole, and common questions. So let's jump in. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk just for a second on COVID. Obviously, that's changed our world here lately. As we all know, it's a difficult time. Let's all try and stay as positive and creative as we can during this COVID situation. Finding new ways for us to do business can be challenging, but also motivating. Let's be thankful that we're in an essential business and remember those that put their safety on the line every day, including you contractors. We know that you're still out there, some of you working hard and taking that risk, and we appreciate you being on the front lines. Let's get started. So first and foremost, I want to just make sure that everybody understands that we and no one else can make a claim that any IAQ product is going to be effective against COVID-19. It's just not possible. So the information that we're going to give you today is more intended just to help you to understand the conversation with the homeowner, the benefits of our products, the Resideo Honeywell home branded products, and to help you when you walk into that home to be educated, well educated to talk to that homeowner. If you have any questions, you can definitely go to the resideo.com/coronavirus update website as well. Let's jump in. So Resideo has a complete line of indoor air quality products. We don't just sell humidification, dehumidification. That's in the upper left-hand part. We're going to focus on humidifiers today. We also do ventilation. Ventilation is huge. We want the air to be as clean as we can when we're breathing. Air filtration helps with that as well. And of course, we have UV, both 110 and 24 volt UV, and our 24 volt unit has odor absorption as well. So we have a complete portfolio of indoor air quality products. And of course, as most of you know, the controls to be able to monitor, check, and change some of those products. Let's dive into the humidification piece. I love this slide. I used this slide when I was on the contracting side for years. It's a great visual to show to home. If you look on the right-hand side, the red, if you will, that's when the humidity gets too high in our houses. And if you look at that, bacteria, viruses, allergens, ozone production, chemical interaction, all increases when the humidity is too high. On the other side of the screen, if you look at the blue bars, now the humidity is too low. We want to keep it in that green zone, the optimum zone, between about 40 to 60%. This is an ASHRAE recommended level. 35 to 55 is good. I keep my house set between 35 and 55. But if you look at the blue bars, again, bacteria, viruses, respiratory infections, those all do very well when the humidity is low. So thus the reason to be able to keep the humidity at the optimum level on both ends of the scale. Now let's talk about variables that affect humidity. So insulation, or actually how tight or loose the house is a huge factor. We want to ask questions of the homeowner. Maybe you do a little research ahead of time before you go to the house and find out when the house was built. Houses that were built in the last 10 to 20 years tend to be much tighter, obviously, than the old farmhouses maybe that were built 60, 80, 100 years ago. We need to talk to the homeowner. If they have an older home, ask them if they've done anything to help tighten that home up. Maybe insulate better or change windows. Go around and find areas where air is getting in and caulk or seal those areas. So these kinds of questions, when we ask our homeowner, help us to decide whether we have a tight, average, or loose house. It's a judgment call, but hopefully we gather information from the homeowner so that we can make a good call in this situation. And that's going to help us in regards to sizing. Ceiling height. So we have to take into account the cubic feet of space. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, instead of the square foot of space. We're not humidifying the square foot of space. I get that question a lot from contractors. Hey, I've got a 2,000 square foot home. What size humidifier do I need? And I look at them and say, well, I don't know. We need to know the total cubic feet of space. So that is important to know length, width, and height for the room by room. Indoor temperature. My parents are older. They like to set their thermostat between 74 and 76. Too warm for my wife and I, but my parents, that's comfortable for them. And when the temperature is higher in the house, it's going to take more humidity to be able to achieve the comfort level that we want. So that's something to consider as well. Control settings. This is important. In regards to the control setting, the first thing we need to do is establish with the homeowner what they feel or believe the RH humidity setting should be. I had a contractor call me once who said, I can't understand why we can't get 60% out of your humidifier. And I'm like, 60%? Why do we want that? Well, the homeowner wants to hit 60%. I said, well, did you size it for that? Did you have a discussion with them? And he didn't. So this is something, again, that we need to get with the homeowner, talk to them about, what do you expect? Here, go back to my optimum humidity sheet, show them, here's what ASHRAE recommends. Here's what we feel good humidity should be between 40 and 60 or 35 and 55. Why is it that you're looking for, maybe 45%? Maybe the flooring guy, they have wood floors and the flooring guy is telling them that they need a higher percent, or they have piano or violin or an instrument, a wood instrument that they want to keep in good shape. So we need to take that into account. The key thing in sizing, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a second, is we can't oversize a humidifier. So err on the side of caution, go bigger if you are in doubt. Ventilation plays a role as well. Fireplace flues, open windows, HRVs, those all play a role because obviously those different items bring air into the house that maybe we're not expecting or we're not counting on. So we definitely need to talk to the homeowner and find out, do they have the flue for the fireplace closed? Do they leave a window open in the winter time? Maybe a boiler system and it gets warm in there and they'll crack a window or something. These are all factors that we have to consider when looking at humidification. Sizing. So again, I talked about cubic feet of space, not square foot of space. If you look at this chart and we go tight, average, or loose, and you look at the 20,000 square foot, cubic feet of space, if we're doing a 20,000 cubic foot of space home and it's a tight home, we may only need 8.6 or round it up to 9 gallon per day. But look at a loose house. If you've got an older farmhouse that hasn't been tightened up, you might need 21 gallon per day. So it makes a big difference. That's why we need to ask good questions and make a good judgment as to whether it's tight, average, or loose. The other thing to remember is this chart is based on 35% relative humidity setting. So if a homeowner wants 40 or 45, we need to take that into account as well. In the install instructions, we have these charts in a guide, so to speak. So you can look there. This is our install guide, or a picture of the install guide for our steam humidifier. And if you look at that same 20,000 cubic foot part of the chart, and you go down to the bottom part of the chart for steam, you can see that in a tight house, we might need 11 gallon per day. But in a loose house, you might need 4 11 gallon per day units. Now with our steam unit, you can get either 11 or 22 gallon per day. We'll talk more about that, depending on the electric hookup. And so instead of 4 11 gallon per day, you could hook that up to 240 volt and use 2 of the steam humidifiers at 22 gallon per day. So these are the factors and the conversations that we need to have with our homeowner up front before we even decide what unit we're going to choose and install. Static pressure. I have learned a lot about static pressure in regards to humidification in the last 5 to 10 years. It is absolutely mission critical. If we have too high a static pressure, several problems can occur. One of which, the one that I see the most, is leaks. So I'll get a call from a contractor saying, hey, the homeowner's complaining about the humidifier leaking. I've checked the drain, everything seems to be okay. What's happening? And my first question is, what's the static pressure on the supply side of your system? Our bypass units, we've got 4 of them listed there, HE100, HE150, 200, and 250. Those units have to have no greater than a 0.3 static pressure on the supply side. So it's important that we check static pressure in the system to make sure that we don't go over that. Our HE300 is a fan-powered unit, and we can go no greater than a 0.4 static pressure with the HE300. Again, check the static pressure on a zoning system. Make sure when the smallest zone is calling, typically that's when your static pressure is going to be the highest. I see this happen a lot in zoning where we don't check static pressure and we have issues with humidification. Critical piece here. Now, there's 2 ways to humidify, both evaporative and steam. Evaporative, we're used to, we deal with that a lot. Obviously, we have a humidifier that there's a water source. We're putting water through an evaporative pad. The dry air crosses that pad, evaporates the water, and sends it into the duct system. On the steam side, we have a canister, the heart of the unit, so to speak. There are electrodes inside that canister. Those electrodes send electricity back and forth through the water, and the mineral then helps to boil that water and create steam. Now let's get into our portfolio. So Resideo Honeywell Home products are the best breadth of humidifiers that I know of in the business. So we have a standard unit, the one on the left, our whole house bypass. We have our good, better units, our TrueEASE evaporative and bypass, and our best unit, our steam. So let me take the one on the left real quick, the whole house bypass. So our standard unit's excellent. It's a clamshell type design. Most of you are used to that. You see the little damper handle there in red, looks like a teardrop. It's easy to install, simple control. It's a bimetal, just normal manual control. And the transformer and saddle valve come in the box with that unit. Moving to our TrueEASE evaporative humidifiers, we have both bypass and fan powered. They're a little bit easier to install. There's some extra features that we're going to talk about with our advanced model units. They do save water and energy. We'll talk about that. And they come with a digital humidistat versus just a manual humidistat. We'll get into detail on that here in a little bit. The steam humidifier. Again, HumidiPRO is included on this product. Very easy to install. We have some advanced diagnostic features as well. So we're going to dive into the details of these products, but I want to just throw a 30,000-foot blanket on the warranty. All of these products have a 5-year warranty, number one. Number two, I told you what comes in the box with the standard unit. The TrueEASE and the ELECTRODE units, they also have the transformer if needed, and the saddle valve, if you can use it. Some code won't allow you to do that, but it's in the box just in case. Along with the control devices that we talked about, the TrueEASE and the ELECTRODE have 10 foot of drain line and 20 foot of water line in the box. So you have most everything that you need to go with those products, other than with the bypass, the pipe, and maybe the low voltage wire itself. Let's get into the TrueEASE units real quick. So very versatile in the design. It's an excellent design. I feel it's the best humidifier in the market. That's my opinion. Again, I mentioned the 5-year warranty. We're going to talk about quieter operation of the fan unit. The maintenance is very simple on these. We're going to get into all that as well. Let's go to the details. So just want to explain a couple things. I talked about how evaporative humidifiers work. This is kind of a breakdown on the left of that happening. But I want to touch base on two things that make us unique in regards to our humidifiers. So first off, the water distribution tray. We call it a perfect flow water distribution tray. It actually is a pitched tray from the center down to the sides. And so if we don't get the humidifier, the bypass humidifier, installed perfectly level, we get good water to the entire pad versus a flat tray that if you're slightly out of level, and as you guys know, water only knows one level, you may get more water on one side of the pad and not as much on the other, which could reduce your humidity. The other thing that we have that is unique is we have an AGION coated pad with all of our humidifiers. They come standard that way. AGION, A-G-I-O-N. AG, of course, is the symbol for silver. Silver is a natural antimicrobial. It helps inhibiting the growth of mold, bacteria, fungus, and algae. This is an awesome upsell to your homeowner to let them know that it is in all of our products, number one. Number two, we do sell a basic pad, if you will, and an AGION coated pad for replacement. And you can upsell to your homeowner the AGION coated pad for replacement of many other manufacturers' units. We do have a list of products that our pad will work with other than just our own. So you can check with your Honeywell Home rep on that list as well and upsell an AGON coated pad to your customers for maybe units that you've sold in the past. Okay, so let's get into the application ease of the TrueEASE models. You can see by the picture, our pad comes out in 3 different ways. It comes out the front, the picture on the right. That's typical, we're used to that. But as you notice, the middle picture, we can bring the pad out the right-hand side or the left-hand side. When you talk about application flexibility, if you run into a closet application and you can't bring it out one of the sides, you can bring it out the front. Maybe you have a wall on one side of the humidifier, you can bring the pad out the opposite side. So it definitely helps you to get humidifiers into places where maybe you weren't able to before. A couple other things I want to mention while I have this picture up. The center of the bypass, the black part. So it's really easy to change our humidifier from left to right. Most humidifiers, you have to gut them to hang them and or reconfigure a bunch of stuff to flip them left to right. All you do is grab the center piece, the black part, after taking the top and bottom door off. No tools are necessary. You flip it left or right, you click it into place, and you're done. Last, I want you to make note of the water line coming out of the bottom. We do a quick connect fitting on the water line. I told you we send water line out with these units, and you can use copper if you want. Copper does not come with it. The vinyl or plastic water line does, but it's the same 1/4 inch that we've been using for years, and you can use the quick connect, nice, easy quick connect feature here of our humidifiers. So a little bit more detail. The advanced models. So we have a basic and advanced model. I'm going to show you those in detail with model numbers in a second. But let me describe our basic and our advanced model bypasses. So our basic units have the chassis and the installation features and the service features that I just talked about and the parts in the box, all the same. The advanced model have 3 things that the basics do not. A water-saving pulsing solenoid, an automatic damper, and 3 LED lights to let the homeowner know what's going on. So let me touch on the water savings. This is huge. It is a great advantage to our humidifiers and an awesome way for you to give better value to your homeowners. The automatic damper opens on a call for humidity, closes when the call is over. If you look at the center picture, you see kind of like what looks like a 1/4 or a nickel next to where the 6-inch round pipe would hook in, and that's the little motor that opens and closes that damper. This is an awesome feature because we're tying a lot of humidifiers to thermostats, internet connected stats today. And we don't have to worry. Is the damper open? Is the damper closed? It opens when there's a call, closes when the call is over. I tell homeowners that helps save 1 bedroom full of airflow when they're not humidifying in the wintertime. Hard to quantify in regards to energy, but it does give them an extra 1 bedroom full of airflow, so to speak. The 3 LED lights, I'm going to back up a slide. They're on the bottom of the pictures here. You can see the white little writing on the bottom. That's humidifying, service, and change pad. So humidifying, if the green light is on, the unit is calling for humidification. Service, if that light's on, the homeowner needs to call you. There's something that needs to be taken care of. Change pad. How many technicians forget to change the pad? How many homeowners don't even know there's a pad in there? This gives them an indication at 12 months to let them know a pad needs changed. There's a reset button inside the unit. So if you change the pad before the light comes on or after, hit the reset button and another 12 months, another 12-month timer will start. So I want to talk briefly about the fan-powered model now. It has a couple, 3 different distinct advantages as well. Our TrueEASE fan-powered saves up to 50% in water. So we have that water-saving pulsing solenoid like we do on the bypass, the advanced bypass. It has a centrifugal blower. Now we've taken the face off of this so that you can see it, but that centrifugal blower helped to quiet the unit down. You can see it's less than 50 decibels. Most of your variable speed equipment runs at about 50 to 55 dB. So when you put a nice quiet system in, you don't want to put a noisy fan powered unit in that's going to kind of, well, geez, I'm sure not getting what I asked for when I wanted that variable speed equipment that's quiet. Awesome use, or awesome features. And the one thing I want to point out as well, this picture on the right is tilted just a little bit to the right, but the black stripe, if you will, that you see is more towards the center of the face of the unit. You grab that, you pull the pad out, and you're good to go. You don't have to gut our humidifier to hang it. Or I'm sorry, to change the pad. So let's go through the anatomy of the bypass, and this is true for our basic and advanced model TrueEASE. So obviously you have the damper, could be an automatic damper with no handle, or there could be a handle there on our basic or standard unit. There's a control panel. I talked about the 3 LED lights, our pulsing solenoid. You see that on the bottom left of the bottom picture. The supply connection we talked about. One thing with the supply connection to remember, you can unscrew that, use a ferrule type fitting if you want, but remember there's a little cone-shaped screen in all of those fittings of our humidifiers. Guys are probably used to the cone-shaped screens. Make sure during maintenance we check that screen, make sure it's clean and or change it. Drain connections at the bottom. The board, the PC board inside our advanced model units only gives you options as far as wiring. So we can wire to check the heat circuit and make sure it's on if we want to humidify and heat only, or we can wire and break the green circuit from the thermostat and force the fan on when we have a call for humidity, if we want to humidify at any time, whether we have the heat on or not. Of course, the pad's in the center there, and the mounting keyholes. Real quick, we put our screw holes on the outside, not the inside of our TrueEASE units, so that you don't have to gut the unit to hang it. Nice and simple. One last thing, we do a foam seal around the back side of the humidifier where it meets the plenum, so that you don't have to caulk the plenum, or sorry, caulk the unit to the plenum. Awesome features, easy to install and easy to service. Now, I love this next couple 3 slides because it lets the homeowner see what we're doing to help save water with our advanced model humidifiers. So a standard humidifier, you need 4 gallons of water to get 1 into the air, as this picture dictates. With our advanced model bypass units, we only need 3 gallons of water to get 1 into the air, thus the 25 to 30% savings of water. With our fan-powered advanced unit, you only need 2 gallons of water to get 1 into the air. So this helps our homeowners to be more green friendly, saves them water, cost of sewer, in my case, I know, is higher than the water cost. And if we're running a lot of water down the drain, that costs extra money. So think about this when you're talking to your homeowners, and it's a great upsell opportunity for you with them. Here's the portfolio of the TrueEASE lineup. I don't have the standard units on here except for our 18-gallon fan-powered, but we have our TrueEASE Basic. You can see it's the same chassis as our TrueEASE Advanced, the 17 and 12-gallon in each. The HE100 and 200 are the basic. The HE150 and 250 are the advanced. Again, the 3 things that set the advanced aside from the basic are the 3 LED indicator lights, the automatic damper, and the pulsing or water-saving solenoid. Now, in the fan-powered models, the one at the bottom is our standard fan-powered model, 18-gallon HE365, and then, of course, our advanced model that we've been talking about with the 3 LED lights and the pulsing water-saving solenoid, the HE300. A great product line to be able to offer a better application flexibility, easy service, and upsell opportunity. Steam humidification, let's talk about that a little bit. So our HM750 Advanced Electrode Humidifier, awesome piece of equipment. Obviously, this is an on-demand unit. We get great flexibility with this. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's very efficient, and as all of our humidifiers, it has a 5-year warranty. Now, the feature benefit set. So it is duct mountable or wall mountable. I'll show you a picture of that here in a little bit. Very compact design. We'll show you dimensions, flexible, and the maintenance is very simple as well. How does it work? I think I explained that earlier, but we've got 2 electrodes that are passing electricity through the water. It interacts with the minerals. We want to make sure that we don't put this on RO water. We want the minerals in the water to be able to enhance the ability to boil that water with the electrodes. So make sure that you're not putting this on an RO water situation. Now, in regards to that, the anatomy of the steam humidifier, we have a diagnostics. Bear with me 1 second. Apologize for that. Well, can't seem to get rid of it. There we go. Okay, so diagnostics. We have a diagnostic board on the front of the steam humidifier. PC board again to be able to do the wiring and do different configurations of wiring. The supply connection is quick connect, as we noted on the other ones. Drain connection there in red at the bottom. The cylinder, the heart of the unit, the connections are at the top. The mounting keyhole in this unit is inside. You can see that there on the top. And then the electrical hookups are behind the red panel. Oh, we're having a little technical issue. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, there we go. We're good. Okay. Sorry about that. So the advanced unit, I said, comes in 11 or 22 gallon per day. It can be remote or duct mounted. I'll show you that picture. 120 or 240 volt. That's where we go from 11 to 22 gallon. And you only need a 15 amp breaker in either case. We're a 12 amp max. Weight, you can see that, very small footprint, and push-in wiring terminals, which our advanced model bypass and fan powered have as well. The cylinder itself, you're going to replace that annually as you would do a humidifier pad. There is a diagnostic indicator that can also let you know if this cylinder needs changed earlier than 1 year. So if the mineral buildup gets too high, it'll actually give you a light on the front of the unit to tell you to change the canister earlier. It's very simple and easy. We do pre-salt the tank in case you run into really good water. For example, down in North Carolina, the water is pretty clean down there. So there's not a lot of mineral in that water to be able to help create the steam. And so we've already taken that into account and pre-salted the tank for you. When you're doing your maintenance, you want to check your hose connection. You want to check your drain and fill valve to make sure you're getting water in and out as it should, and check your duct or remote mount to make sure that it's doing well. Now, here's the 2 pictures. So we've got the duct mount application on the left. You're just drilling an 1 3/4 inch hole, mount the unit to the supply plenum, and you are good to go. Make sure that that duct nozzle stays 3 inches away from anything so that we don't get condensation happening at the coil, for example, or maybe the top of the plenum. On the right, we've got the remote or wall mount. So the steam unit comes with a 5-foot hose. It is an extremely sturdy hose. We also have a 15-foot for like counterflow applications. But this hose, I have about a 6 or 8 foot piece that I use for demos. And I weigh about 200 pounds, and I stand on that thing in front of contractors. That's how sturdy it is. So when we're running steam through that and it gets good and hot, it's not going to kick or bend on you. Now, one thing that I want to point out in this picture is the auxiliary drain that comes off of the steam hose with the loop. We don't need that anymore, so you can ignore that part of it. The steam that condenses in the hose is going to come right back into the unit if you install it correctly. Here's the model numbers on the steam. The HM750A, of course, is the unit itself. The HM750A CYL/U is the cylinder. You can see the duct and remote nozzle model number, the fill and drain valve, which is one piece, the electronic control board, and then the 15-foot steam hose that I mentioned for like a counterflow application. So the humidification controls, we provide the HumidiPRO with all the TrueEASE and steam unit. Great control. I love this thing. It's manual or automatic, so you can buy one product and have either or. We're going to talk about the window protection here in a second. It also can control dehumidification, and it's very easy to wire. If you have an outdoor sensor attached to this unit, we actually have a fail-safe for high outdoor temp. If it gets 65 degrees or above, it won't allow a call for humidity. Because this can double as a dehumidification control, we actually have compressor protection built in. It's adjustable. One of the things to note, we're attaching a lot of humidifiers, like I mentioned earlier, to thermostats that can control humidification. Put this in the truck, put it on the shelf. If you don't use it for the humidifier, maybe you can use it down the road for dehumidification control. Gives you a free dehumidistat. Anatomy here is pretty simple. We've got a large screen to show you inside 30%. The RH, obviously you've got the bottom left button for the light, the on-off button on the bottom right, and then your up-down arrows for your set point adjustment. Now, the outdoor sensor comes with the HumidiPRO in all instances. If you connect the outdoor sensor to the unit, you're going to get an automatic control or frost protection control. If you don't connect it, it's a manual humidistat. The beautiful part about this is no configuration necessary. Connect the sensor or don't connect it, it configures itself. And with the outdoor sensor connected, obviously, we're helping to reduce or hopefully prevent condensation from getting on the windows. Control devices. We've talked about the HumidiPRO, our bimetal control, basic manual control, if you will. We also have thermostats, as you well know, that can control humidification and dehumidification in some cases as well. The VisionPro Wi-Fi, our Smart 8000, as long as you see that 1 in the 4th number of the model number, that means that the thermostat has a humidity sensor on board and can control humidification and or dehumidification. Our VisionPro RedLink 8000, our Prestige, our T10 new T10 Pro thermostat, SmartStat, all can do the control of humidification or dehumidification. Last, I want to end with, not only do we sell you the product and have the product available, but we want to help you to know what to do, how to talk to your homeowner, and give you a tool by which you can go in and take the air cycle of a home, actually do 6 different readings in a home, talk to the homeowner about those readings, and help them if any of those readings, temp, humidity, CO, CO2, VOC, and particulate, if any of those are out of control, we want you to know how to talk to that homeowner and tie in the indoor air quality products, obviously humidification that we're talking about today. It just helps you with that conversation and helps the homeowner see the unseen, so to speak. So if you have any questions, get with your Resideo Honeywell Home rep, or you can look on resideo.com/AIRCYCLE for more information. I've had several contractors that have adopted this and are doing very well with it. So please take advantage of this as well, along with our product. With that, Jamie, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks so much, Jeff. All of you can find information on the humidification products that Jeff reviewed today in our training at the new resideo.com website. We are going to transition to answering some common questions about humidification next, and then we're going to move on to answering the questions that have been entered in the Q&A while Jeff has been providing the technical details of our humidification presentation today. Just another final reminder, if you do have any questions, be sure to enter those in the Q&A feature found in your Zoom controls, and we will make sure to answer those questions. We're going to have Gary Crosby, who is one of our Resideo sales reps in Indiana, join Jeff during this next session. So gentlemen, why don't you flip to the next slide there, Jeff, and we can go through those common questions on humidification.
Awesome.
All right, Jeff, the first question is, when should I choose a bypass, a fan-powered, or a steam humidifier?
So Gary, that's going to be based on airflow and or plenum temperature. The lower the airflow, the lower the plenum temperature, the less evaporation we're going to get out of our bypass type humidifiers. So at that point, we may want to look at a fan-powered, or of course the steam unit is the best because it doesn't rely on evaporation at all. We can just let that thing go on, boil water, put it into the system as long as we have airflow in the system.
Awesome. Number 2, should I use hot or cold water for humidifiers?
Great question. I get this a lot, Gary. And you know, it's up to you. You can use hot or cold water. The thing that I would say to any contractor is take 2 things into account. Number 1, if you're going to use hot water, obviously you've got the cost of heating that water. And then as we talked about earlier, some of that water is going to go down the drain. Secondly, hot water is going to break the pad down faster. It's going to calcify that pad quicker. So that's another consideration, but you can use either one.
Number 3 is, how do I know when to change the evaporative pad in a bypass or fan-powered humidifier?
Another good question. I get that quite often. So I always recommend rule of thumb once a year, but it's going to depend on the water. As you know, water can vary, and in the state of Ohio, I know from one area to another, an hour here, a half an hour there, the type of water can change. So the harder the water, the more often we need to check. The pad may need to be changed earlier than just once a year. So it's going to depend on water quality, but at least let's check that once a year.
Number 4, Jeff, is when should the canister be changed in the steam humidifier?
So again, I mentioned that we have an indicator on the unit itself, but again, I would change that once a year minimum. And if the unit, the indicator light goes on to let you know it needs changed, then I would change it earlier than that. And again, that's going to be based on water quality. Again, the harder the water, it may need to be changed earlier.
And number 5 here, Jeff, is can humidifiers be connected to RO, reverse osmosis water?
So I think I mentioned earlier that with the steam units, definitely not. Oh, I need to back up, Gary. On the hot or cold water, I forgot to mention that with the steam humidifier, we definitely want cold water only, because when we drain the steam humidifier, we want to temper that water down and make sure it's not at 212 degrees when it comes out of that drain. So I forgot to mention that with the hot or cold question. Now, back to, can the humidifiers be connected to RO? So with steam, again, we do not want to connect it to RO. Gary, I'm going to yield back to you. I can't remember on RO with bypass or fan powered. So can you take it from there?
Yeah, so my experience with RO water, the reason you do not want to hook that to any powered or fan, bypass rather, because that RO water is acidic. So you can't even run RO water through copper. That's why you always see PEX or plastic water line used with that. So because it's acidic, it'll break down material. So it'll break the pad down. As that material blows into the airstream inside the furnace, that material starts kind of coating the inside of the plenum. So there's just no reason to use RO water with any humidifier today. So Jeff, I've got some online questions that some of our have typed in. So I'm going to start reading some of those out for you, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, first one is, does the fan assist get on the supply side or the return side of the furnace?
So good question. I recommend on the supply side. You could put it on the return side, but you have to look at the install instructions in regards to the drain. But supply side is where I would recommend that it go.
Yep, and I'll just add that what makes those pad humidifiers work is stealing the heat from that furnace. So if you put powered on the return side, it's only going to be 70-degree air going through that pad no matter what. So if you're going to put it on the return side, force the fan on with humidity so you'll at least get some humidity when there's no call for heat. It's just going to run all the time if you do that. So supply side is the best for fan power. Our next question here is, with the electrode unit, what minimum water mineral content needed?
Oh, I think we had that back on the slide, and I can't remember that one off the top of my head, Gary. But I can go back real quick and pick that up, I believe. There we go. 50 to 1300 is the conductivity that we need.
And for good rule of thumb is don't hook it to RO. Pipe it from the dirty side of whatever line's coming in. All right. Is there any type of program to send back the HumidiPRO control that they don't need on the job, i.e. the thermostats running the humidifier, Jeff?
Yeah, I do get that question occasionally, and the answer is no, there isn't. Again, I would recommend putting it on the shelf. You may need it for dehumidification. It comes with the unit, so you can use it or obviously connect it to a different, like thermostat or whatever.
Jeff, what is the visual cue that a pad needs to be replaced on our humidifier?
Oh, wow. So I've seen a lot of different situations. One of the things that I've done for years is just kind of press my finger to the pad, and if the pad starts to crumble, if you will, it's time to change the pad. Gary, do you have any more to add to that?
Well, we do have a change pad light on the front that pops off when it's ran for more than a year, or if you're monitoring the heat circuit on the furnace, it'll start flashing after 5,500 hours of runtime as well. So visual cues, like Jeff said, plus we'll start a flashing light after a year, so maybe you or the homeowner catch that.
Before we answer the next question, Jeff, would you mind hitting to the Q&A slide so that we can make sure to give our attendees a visual of all of our humidification products? Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
On the draining system, should we use copper instead of PVC? On draining steam specifically, I'm sorry.
In regards to steam, I was going to say. Yeah, yep. So it does need to be rated to, do we need to be rated to 220 degrees if I remember? I'd have to look in the install manual. I don't know that one off the top of my head either.
So Jeff, it needs to be 140 degrees. So any Schedule 40 PVC that's roughed in a house can handle 140 degrees. And we do temper that down before we let that steam come out of that tank. So that's why you have to have cold water hooked to it. So it'll bring cold water in, temper the tank, and then release and drain after 140. So if you want to use the provided hose, that is a rated hose, but if you want to use copper, it's not any kind of acidic water. It's just a little harder than normal. So it's not going to hurt using copper if you want to make it look nice. And is there a reduction in the well, I think we've already kind of answered that question on whether or not we lose if we put on the return or supply side, but the bypass is not going to lose that, because even if you put the bypass on the return, you're pulling the hot, your 6-inch pipe coming off the supply is bringing the hot air to the pad that way. So the bypass is a good alternative to if you can't get the power on the supply. And then Jeff, our last one here online is, are pads still direction sensitive top to bottom?
Did you say pads? You cut out a second, Gary.
So are the pads still direction sensitive? Like you put one in upside down?
Yes. So there is an ink spot on the pad so that that goes to the top. Yes.
The ink spot goes to the top, correct, Jeff?
Yep, that's right.
And got another one here. How does the pulsating solenoid work exactly?
Oh, I get a lot of questions about that. So there's no sensor. Basically, it's a timing issue. So we just know how much time it takes to saturate the pad, how much time we can leave the solenoid closed without affecting how many gallons per day we're getting out of the humidifier. So it's strictly a timing thing.
Yeah, and it's actually an algorithm in that board it's a timer, but it's slightly smarter than. So it within a 2000 CFM system or lower, it's gonna calculate correctly how wet that pad needs to be so you can put one side by side with one that doesn't pulsate, and you're going to get the same output, just use less water.
Okay, great. That's all the questions we've got so far in the open queue. It looks like actually we've got one more coming in. If you want to take a look at that,
Sure.
gentlemen.
What causes a chattering noise on solenoid valves?
Gary, I don't see the solenoid issues that you do. You want to tackle that one?
Yeah, you know, there's a couple different reasons why solenoids go bad. I'd say the majority of them is hard water. And hard water is, you know, it's just a humidifier killer if you don't keep the maintenance on it. So they could have a lot of calcium, magnesium built up on the inlet side, where we have a filter. When you're maintaining any of our humidifiers, where the water comes in, you'll shut the water down, you'll unscrew that water line, and there's a filter that's going to drop down out of there. So that filter's got to be cleaned out. If it never gets cleaned out, it's definitely going to get corroded, and that could cause some chattering on that. Now, somebody just put in, will the pulsating cause a noise that's noticeable? It does. You don't hear it. Actually, it's a solenoid, so it eliminates that snap that you normally hear, and it's just shutting the water flow down. Jeff, we got another question here. Are there dip switches on the advanced board?
There are. So there's two dip switches depending on how you wire the unit for, are we monitoring the heat circuit or not, and or are we kicking the fan on or off? So you definitely need to make sure before you power an advanced model unit up that you set the dip switches appropriately per the install instructions. If you make your dip switch change when the power is on, it's not going to take. So it's just like a furnace. Turn the power off to the unit, make sure and change your dip switches to where they need to go, and then power your unit back on.
And I thought I saw somebody ask, does the Resideo Home app support remote access to our humidifiers, Jeff?
Yes, they do. Both of them do. It depends on the control device that you use, but the Total Connect Comfort and the Honeywell Home app both support turning on and off the humidifiers, like the T10 on the Honeywell Home app, the Prestige, the Vision Pro, Wi-Fi or standard Vision Pro as well.
Got a question here on twinning of furnaces, Jeff. So if I have a twin furnace application, do you recommend to have 2 humidifiers installed on each furnace or only one on the main duct?
Well, that goes back to the sizing chart and checking to ensure that we have the humidification that we need. So I guess I can't really answer that question without knowing the particulars of the house. I'm going to assume it's a pretty big house, but we don't know if it's tight or loose, what have you. Goes back to asking those key questions that we talked about in the beginning.
Jeff, do the humidifiers, all the humidifiers need to be level and plumbed to the system?
They should be, especially bypass and fan powered. And the canister as well. You want to make sure that they're as level as you can get them. But the reason I mentioned the distribution tray is water only knows one level, and that's absolutely perfect. So we want to level those units up. But if we're just slightly out of level, we're going to get good even distribution throughout the whole pad with our distribution tray.
Jeff, I have a question about steam humidifiers and the injection nozzle. How many arms or inserts go into the ductwork for that?
How many what go into the ductwork area?
So nozzles, how many do we have? One?
Oh, yeah, just one. Yep. Yeah, you've got the one steam hose connection and the nozzle at the end of that. So you've got the one nozzle that's going into the ductwork. Now, there's a different nozzle for the duct mount versus the hose mount, but you're only using one.
And I've got a question here I'm going to answer, if you don't mind, Jeff.
Not at all.
Can homeowners purchase online or in big box stores with this? And these are all professional installed systems we're talking about here. None of these are sold in retail. So there may be an odd event where somebody finds something online. We don't particularly sell them online. So these need to be installed by a pro contractor, hopefully supported by his local distributor.
All right, thanks so much. Please join us every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time and every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time for our Resideo customer webinar series. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to all of the questions today, but we will make sure to forward these to your Resideo Honeywell Home sales rep to get those answered. Please join us next week for our next series of webinar topics. We're going to be talking about pressure reducing valves. So please be sure to share the details of our webinars with your teammates and your coworkers, and please be sure to join us next week. Also want to make sure that you are aware that we have launched a resource page on the resideo.com website where we post the recordings of our webinars if you'd like to reference back over the information that we do cover on these sessions at a later time. And then on the next slide, just a final reminder to those contractors who did not include your NATE ID on your registration form and you would like to receive credit for today's session. Please send your first name, your last name, your NATE ID number to homes.university@resideo.com before Wednesday of next week so that we can submit that information to NATE for crediting for attending this live training session. And then two final things to note before we end today. You are going to be prompted to complete a survey regarding our webinar session today. Please take a few minutes to provide us with your feedback on today's session. We are looking forward to launching our May series of topics, and we do want to hear your feedback, especially on any topics that you'd like for us to cover in the future. And then you're also going to receive an email from us in just a few days that includes some follow-up information along with the link to our webinar page, which lists the schedule of our upcoming webinars. And we're also going to link to the recorded webinar session landing page as well in that email. Thank you all for joining us on today's Resideo webinar session on humidification. Please be sure to join us on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time as we discuss pressure reducing valves. Thank you so much for attending today's session. Have a great day, everyone.